Here we are again on another episode of the Maverick Makers podcast. I am very excited to welcome Jake Gold this week. Jake Gold is one of Canada's most successful artist managers, and for its 6th season run, a judge on the national television hit Canadian Idol. In 1981, Gold started his artist management company, The Management Trust, through which he is best known for his role in establishing and transforming the Tragically hip into a national icon. In 2020, Gold reunited with the band to direct their legacy in Canadian music history. He also manages acclaimed pop rock band The Pursuit of Happiness and music producers Mo Berg, Lawrence Curry, and Russell Broom, and co-manages the quickly rising Pop R&B act Ethan Surman alongside Brian Hefford. In 2024, Jake was inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. You're going to love our conversation. It is very insightful to hear from a music and entertainment veteran. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Maverick Makers podcast. I am thrilled to have Hall of Famer Jake Gold on the show. So welcome, Jake.
Oh, nice to meet you, Michelle. Hall of Famer. Okay.
Yeah, Canadian Hall of Famer.
I think that's the first Canadian music industry Hall of Famer, sure. But yeah.
Well, hey, you deserve it. You deserve every piece of it. And I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. You are also the executive producer of this amazing new The Tragically Hip documentary, which we'll talk about, but let's dig in about your amazing career. So the first question I've got for you is, have you ever been called a maverick?
No, I don't think so. Not publicly. Maybe in conversation, but it's not really, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to call you.
You be the first. You be the first.
Okay, fabulous. And let's start with your journey. So let's talk about the beginning of your career. So where did you start? And we'll start there and then we'll keep going forward.
Well, there's a theory that I started managing when I was in grade 6. It's a funny story. There's these guys I still once in a while play cards with, and some of them are from public school and some of them are from junior high, some of them are from high school. And one day one of them said, you're the only guy that literally got to do what he always wanted to do. And I say, why do you say that? And he said, don't you remember in grade 6, and he mentioned these 3 girls in our class wanted to enter a talent contest, like as an acoustic trio. He said, and you rehearsed them for 2 weeks and they ended up winning the talent contest. So he said, you were started as a manager in grade 6. And I said, I'd never thought of that before. And I completely forgot about the whole thing. And I'd made a post on Instagram, I think back in like 2015 or something. And some of those girls still follow me on Instagram, and they had commented that they remembered it. And then they told me that what their name was, and I had no idea that that's what the name of the trio was, because I guess I named them too. So,
what was it?
Jake's Golden Girls.
I love it. Perfect.
Which I find, or maybe they were Golden Girls, and they just said, they referred to it as my Golden Girls. So I guess I always had a hankering for music. I had sung in bands and in high school, cover bands and stuff. And I'd gone on the road with some bands just because I like being around it. Lighting guy, roadie, just. And when I was living in LA from 79 to 81. And when I came back from LA, a friend of mine had a band, and They were signed to a label. They were supposed to go on the road. They broke up right before the tour. They reformed with some new members, and they approached me and said, "We want you to be our manager." And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it." And my friend, who was the drummer, who was a childhood friend, said, "Don't worry, you'll be good." And that was 1981. And that's what I've done ever since.
Wow. And what was that first band, if you can tell us?
They were called the Purple Hearts.
Okay.
And my friend Coleman York was the drummer, and he was a guy I knew from junior high school.
So let's talk about what happened next. So you've been doing the management company, you've been managing all these great bands, and then how did Canadian Idol come to be?
Well, in 2003, the Tragically hip and I parted ways. I got a call within a couple of weeks of that and asked me if I wanted to be on this television show. And I turned them down at first because I thought, this isn't really me. I don't know if I really want to do that. That sort of karaoke type pop singer thing wasn't my world. And my now ex-wife had said to me, "You should do it. I think you'll be good at it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll go meet with them." And unbeknownst to me, when I was having this meeting, they had already set up basically an audition. So I have this meeting with them, and then they said, "Well, would you like to come hear some singers?" I was like, "Sure, okay." So we go down to the basement of their offices, and there's a studio set up, and there's a desk, and there's cameras everywhere, and they give me these sort of cheat sheets, and they had other producers from the show on either side of me. And they said, just, engage in conversation with them, and, they'll sing, and then you'll comment on what they do. Okay, I'll do that. And there was one girl came in, and it said, "This is Susie, and she's from Saskatoon, and she's going to sing this." These were the notes and they were the same kind of notes that we actually ended up getting on the show. And I said, "Oh, Susie, you're from Saskatoon. Do you know so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so?" And then it became obvious and clear that she wasn't Susie from Saskatoon, that she was an actor hired to play Susie from Saskatoon. And some of them were hired to sing bad, and some of them were hired, and they were theater people that could sing, but they were also told to sing bad and sing good and do this and do that. All I know is I finished it, walked out, and the camera guy, as I'm walking out, says, "Have you done this before?" He whispers to me, and I said, "No, I've never done this." And he says, "Well, you're the best guy we've had here." And I was like, "Well, okay." So we did another audition after that where there were 6 of us, and they had to pick the 4. Although they never told us it was going to be 4. We always thought it was going to be 3 because we were mirroring the U.S. show, which had been on the air for 1 year at the time. And then eventually they chose 4 because they wanted it to be different than the U.S. panel. And I guess by March that year, we were flying. I think we flew to Vancouver first for the first auditions for the show. So that's how it came about.
Wow. And what was the most exciting part about being on Canadian Idol?
Exciting?
Or interesting? Or
for me, from a business standpoint, I got to learn a lot about the television world, which I hadn't really played in before. So making new relationships in that world, the broadcasters, seeing how it worked, seeing, how the editing went. Also, there was no script. So we were literally on our own to kind of learn how to be precise in what you're saying and being able to talk in sound bites. I did a lot of media as part of it, which I'd never done before because I was always a behind the scenes guy. So that part, it was fun. We were like a band, the four of us on the road. We'd go to the airport together and we'd land and, we'd hang out. Like that was what we did. The audition days were really long. We would be on set at 7:30 in the morning, and some days wouldn't finish till 9:30. We'd have breaks for lunch and dinner, but they were long days. But the live shows were fun because they were in the moment. There was no editing. They went out live as live. We got nice clothing budget, and we stayed in nice hotels, and we got to see some places that I'd been to before but never actually had spent enough time in, and we were going to those same places every year. So I got to go to Newfoundland 6 times, and when I had some time off, I get to see friends, and so it was fun. It was different for me, but it was a learning experience too.
Amazing. And were you surprised by any of the talent, or was there anybody that you're like, wow, amazing?
There was a few of them. One in particular was Carly Rae Jepsen. So she was like, I think in season 4 or 5, and we knew this was a real artist, and we kind of made it our mission to make sure that people saw that, because there were a lot of karaoke singers.
So Carly Rae Jepsen, so she was a standout, real talent. So that must have been exciting to see her sing and see her flourish. Any other artists that you could think?
There was a whole bunch of people that we saw as maybe not having success in the music business per se, but maybe in the theatrical business. And some of them went on to be actors. Elena Watko went on to be a successful actor. Steffi D, who's had a huge career in theater. She was in Come From Away. She's back again in the new cast that's opening. She's done tons and tons of theater and television commercials, and she's in the new season of Umbrella Academy that just came out on Netflix. It's actually my neighbor, which is really funny because we see each other all the time. And she was 17 or 16, 17 when she auditioned. And that was, I think that was season 4 or 5. So that was, she's over 30 now, and she's got a flourishing career. So there was a few people like that were actually super talented, but may not be music people. But I think as far as the most successful one, also Melissa O'Neill, who won it one year. She's had a successful acting career and theater career. But as far as just straight music career, the most successful was Carly Rae of all of them.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest Maverick move to date has been?
I don't know. I guess you could say back in August of 1986, right around this time of year, seeing the Tragically hit for the first time and realizing, okay, this is something really special. You always have to go back to that. How did it get started? And that's how it started. Is that first time I saw them, we were 30 seconds into the first song, and I looked at my partner Al and I said, "We're signing these guys tonight." Like, you just knew there was lightning in a bottle.
Wow, that must have been incredible to watch, first of all. And
well, I can still remember it, and I still feel it to this day. But it's interesting because that actually was a reminder for me when I would be on the TV show, because I was looking for that same thing all the time. I was looking for that involuntary response, because people always say, how do you know? How do you know? And I always say, when you know. And it was that involuntary response where someone would get up and perform, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that's good. Because you're feeling something that you didn't feel before they entered the room. And so that's kind of became the litmus test for everything moving forward. Because up until that point, I had managed acts for 4 or 5 years. But I don't think I really knew where the bar was until I saw them.
That's a huge litmus test. And I'm sure going forward, that would have been a huge, bar to achieve for them.
It was difficult. Like, I signed other acts that went on to have some really good success. The Watchmen and Big Rack and Adam Cohen and people like that. None of them reached the success that the Hip did, but it became sort of, if it's not that good, if it doesn't have that level of communication, then I can't be involved.
Yeah, makes
And then
sense.
sometimes you just fall in love with something and you just go, you know what? This is really good. I'm going to try and make this happen.
Amazing. For me, Gordon Downey was Shakespeare.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably to a lot of people.
Yeah, he was brilliant. And so let's talk a bit about, what was it like working with them?
Well, like any group, you have a group of artists that are very collaborative. They were from a small town. They were not from any of the big cities. All except Johnny, because Johnny joined the band out of high school, all university graduates. They were well-educated, smart people. And they had a sense of self. And it became more and more apparent as we went along, as their sense of self. And I think that also became a thing for me is I'm not a packager kind of manager. I'm not the guy that's, we're going to bring in these vocal teachers and dancers and we're going to bring in stylists. And that's not what I do. I mean, I can help and make comments and things like that, but it's not what I do. I look for artists with a sense of self. And these guys had a real sense of self on who they were and what they wanted to do and how they were going to do it. And so working with them taught me a lot too about what it was like to have a band that was that good and that could move people that way. But it also allowed me to do things to really be creative with the things we did, because I knew they could deliver on it. So we did things that nobody had done before. We were breaking rules all the time. And there was always a fight because the business was like, no, you do it this way. And we're like, no, they do it this way. That's not how we do it. And we're going to do it this way instead. And we always proved them wrong because we said the only way we're going to stand out from everybody else is to do it our own way. And whatever it was, whether it was how we treated media, when we did media, just all of those kinds of things. There's a lot you could get into, but we did the first ever traveling festival tour in Canada. Like, Lollapalooza had come to Toronto, had come to Montreal, maybe Vancouver, but had never actually gone across the country. And we did Calgary and Saskatoon and Winnipeg, and we went to other cities. We went to Ottawa. We went to Niagara. Nobody had done that before. We did that in 93, 95, and 97. That was another roadside attraction. We were the first to do that. And I had taken that model from what we saw when we were playing in Europe, because Europe had all kinds of festivals like that. Now North America has festivals everywhere, but back then there wasn't really any festivals. Not bad.
Interesting. Let's talk about the documentary now. So you're the executive producer. What was it like putting that together, being part of that?
So, Mike Downey, Gord's brother, who's a documentary filmmaker, when I got hired back by the band in 2020, one of the things that I was really tasked to do was okay, how do we continue the legacy?
Mm-hmm.
That would be whether it be reissues, finding unreleased music, all of that kind of stuff. And so we proceeded to figure out what we had, what was in the vaults, what ephemera we had. I hired a company out of Boston that they build archives. So they were building the ephemera archive for us, and they were literally going into every guy's basement and storage lockers, and they would bring it all to a place in Guelph, and scan and sort and catalog and archive everything. And so we have this physical archive, but we also have a digital archive that became a really big source for the doc. And Mike had approached me and said, we should make a doc.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, what's your vision for it? So I said, write up what your vision is and let's fine tune it. And then we'll go out and we'll shop it. We'll go talk to people. And Amazon, their documentary, they're not unscripted people in LA, really loved what they saw. And they stepped up and said, let's do this. And so, I oversaw making the deal. I oversaw how all the parts were going to work together. But Mike really built a team because he had a team because he'd made films before. And Amazon was mostly hands off because they kept saying, you guys are the only ones that can make this film, especially because in order for the guys in the band to be open and honest, they needed to know that they could trust the person on the other side. Because we were always a very closed ranks. And it took from the time of Mike and I discussing it till the time it was finished, it was almost 4 years. So it's going to premiere at Toronto International Film Festival in September 5th. That'll be the world premiere, all 4 episodes. So it'll be 2 with an intermission and then 2 more. That's at noon at the Royal Alex. And then sometime later in the month, it's going to be up on the Amazon Prime platform worldwide.
Fabulous. I can't wait to watch it. I'm really excited. That's so
Get the box of Kleenex out.
Oh, I can imagine. Wow.
No, you can't.
Oh, I can't. That's true. But I will say, and I said it to you personally, but honestly, the Tragically Hip really defined a part of my teenage years. Like, just this would take hours. But anyways, it just really has a special place. So
did you grow up in Toronto?
I did grow up in Toronto, or just again north of the city in Richmond Hill, Ontario. But
no, I grew up at Bathurst and Steele, so like
there you go.
Yeah. I went to the same high school as the guys from Rush, and
wow, so amazing.
Yeah, and the same junior high school. So
lovely. But driving to the cottage or driving to camp or whatever it is, playing the hip, it just over and over again on repeat. The cassette tapes, nobody knows what that is anymore, but anyways, yes.
Right.
Okay, what do you think it takes to have staying power in the entertainment industry, because it's a grind?
I worked with this guy way back when. He was the first guy that I kind of worked a little bit for and had my own acts, because I after the Purple Hearts had a band called New Regime, was my first act signed to a label. And his name was Dave Kirby. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he always used to say, if you stick around long enough, people are going to give you credibility, because they're going to see that you're not a flash in the pan. So I think you have to stick to it. And Malcolm Gladwell went on later and wrote a book called The Tipping Point, and talked about and I think Outliers, and he taught Outliers was the book. We talked about the 10,000 hours and all that, but that's kind of what we were talking about then.
Right.
was like, if you stick around long enough, you'll build a constituency of relationships and people that will then see you as legit. And I think that being forthright, being honest, um, being dependable, um, being someone that's true to their word. I think you know if you stick with that philosophy, and maintain relationships, I think you can get through. um, People say, oh, well, you have to be lucky. I always say, luck is knowing when to seize opportunity. And so things happen by chance sometimes, but you also have to know that that's an opportunity, or
Right.
that's something. When I met Alan Gregg in 1985, and we decided to be partners a month later, I saw this guy as a potential mentor to me, but also he needed me as well for what he was trying to do. And that partnership lasted for years and years and years, and we're still very, very close friends. But it was him that got the tape from a friend of his in Kingston, with the Hips music on it.
Cool.
So you know had I not met him, we never would have got the tape. That never would have happened. You can look back at all those things, but at the time when I first met him, I said, okay, this is a guy I want to work with, because I saw that I could learn from him. So people say, well, you were lucky to meet him. I say, well, meeting him is one thing. It's another thing to do something about it.
Right.
So I think that's where the knowing what to seize opportunity comes about. But even when I met him, I remember a couple of years later, I said, why did you choose to work with me and invest in me and that kind of thing? And he said, because all the people I talked to about trying to, do what I wanted to do, every single one of them was asking me for money. And you were the only one that said, if we're successful, we'll make money. He said, everybody else asked me for money. So I knew that you were going to put in the hard work.
Brilliant. I love it. I love this advice. Thanks for sharing that. I could speak to you for hours, but are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, we could do that. We could lighten up. We could lighten it up.
Okay, let's light it up then. Here we go. Fact or fiction?
What?
Do you choose fact or fiction?
Oh, fiction when I'm trying to escape.
That's a good answer.
Fact when it comes to business.
Great answer. That's fair. Chocolate or vanilla?
Um, I really prefer swirl.
Okay, like I see how this is going. Okay. Early riser or night owl?
Both.
I really see how this is going now. Okay, good.
Oh yeah, no, I'm up at 6:30 every morning, and I'm probably in bed at midnight to 1.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I sleep 6 hours mostly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impact or inspiration?
Mm. Impact.
Great. What keeps you up at night?
Late U.S. Open tennis matches.
Good stuff. If you could live in any era, future or past, what would it be?
Right now.
Love it. Perfect. You can take 3 people to the moon with you. Who are you bringing along?
Well, if it was my girlfriend would probably be really disappointed if I didn't say her, but let's just say fantasy people. Okay. Anthony Bourdain,
Love it.
Gord Downey,
Amazing.
and Peter Gabriel.
Oh my goodness. What a good one. Love it.
He's my favorite. So
Wow. Me too.
I've actually had an opportunity to meet him and would not meet him.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Amazing. I got to go to the moon. What's written on your tombstone?
Mm. Uh, he was a man of his word.
Beautiful. How do you want to change the world?
Um, hmm. How do I want to change the world? I don't know if I really want to change the world.
We're
So, I think I just want to, I want artists to get their due and be fairly represented. And I want artists to be able to thrive.
wonderful. What's next?
Well, we have this documentary coming out. We have a book coming out October 1st.
Wow, okay.
The doc's called No Dress Rehearsal. The book's called This Is Our Life, which is a coffee table book written in the guy's own words from a company called Genesis Publications out of the UK, which do all the really famous rock and roll books, including the Beatles anthology and books like that. So there's a lot going on. We have a box set with The Hip coming out in November, which is a box set from Up to Here. We're going to have a busy 6 months. And there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm not really at liberty to talk about yet when it regard to them. I have some young acts that we're working with. My right-hand guy, Ryan, has signed a couple of DJs, and we have a pop artist named Ethan Surman. So we're working with some new acts as well. The Pursuit of Happiness is always playing shows and doing things. So it all keeps me busy.
Amazing. Well, this has been a very interesting and thrilling conversation for me, and I'm sure for all of the people listening and watching out there. So thank you so much for your time, Jake. And I can't wait to see, one, the documentary, and two, everything else come to fruition. So thank you. The Maverick Makers podcast is sponsored by Maverick Makers Content Creation Collective. We fuel your content pipeline through video, photography, design, and editorial. Let's connect to your audiences and make more sales. Learn more at maverickmakersco.com.